Here we go on a rainy Thursday, live in the upstate. This is First and Tim, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, Spotify, YouTube channel, First and Tim. College football, the playoff ranking thoughts on that today. I've got a 49er story that's fascinating. I've got a Philadelphia Eagles story. Ooh, lots of good stuff to get to today. Glad you guys could join me this evening. Alright, so let me start with this. And this was a very interesting article that I read. Okay, so Rob Devonsky, he's a very good reporter. He's been covering the Packers for a long time. He knows his stuff. I don't mean to dog on Aaron. I'm not an anti-Aaron hater. I'm an anti-organization. But okay, this story he wrote about the Packers where the crossroads, they're now scheduled, gets very brutal. Okay, they play Dallas, Tennessee, and Philly. 3 physical teams in a row, especially Tennessee and Philly. Green Bay's not going to win those games. And they may be 3-9 at the end of those 3-game stretches. But here's another question. Why are they going to lose to Dallas and they're already 4.5 games out of first place? Like, they're going to lose another game and the teams ahead of them win another game. So should you bench Aaron Rodgers? Now, it sounds crazy, but he writes this in this column. He talks to Mike Tannenbaum, a former general manager in the league, and he brings up some good points, which is, now in this current situation, you have to play Jordan Love. Once they're eliminated at the end of the day, the guys running the organizations has a responsibility for the next decade. They're not going to win the title this year. Hey, Aaron, we're benching you. The alternative, he comes back, and then they trade Jordan Love to a team like the Falcons for a 3rd-round pick, and Jordan Love is like, now consequential starter in the league for 10 years. So, first of all, here's what makes sense. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 39 really quick, okay? He looks like he's declining a little. Not as fast as everybody is claiming, but he's declining a little. You want him to get more hits in meaningless games? I mean, do you really think that's the thing to do? Secondly, Green Bay, you got to show people what Jordan Love is. You have to show yourself. If not, by May, you make a decision. Are you going to pay him? And whether you want to pay him or not. You got to know, does he have the goods? And since Green Bay does not get free agents historically, the way to improve this team is trade pieces. So if he's good, move him. Keep hearing, and get some pieces. This team needs an infusion, a good move. They keep hearing him, they need an infusion of young, cheap players, because if you think they're cash strapped now, next year, Aaron Jones, the running back, $20 million cap. David Bakhtiari, left tackle, huge cap hit. Jair Alexander, corner, great, whatever it is, $20 million cap. Okay? It's a $20 million cap hit. Kenny Clark, great defensive lineman, way up there. I don't know exactly what the cap it is, but it's monstrous. So, if you think they're cash strapped, now they're in massive trouble next year. And the other thing to think about it is Jordan Love isn't very good. At least you get a top 10 draft pick. You may go fishing for another quarterback, but in the end, what's the value of playing a very soon-to-be 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers a meaningless game? It's rhetorical. There is no value in it. I also think that Aaron would buy into this. You'd have to handle it somehow, delicately. But Aaron is a grown-up, and you say, Aaron, you're still getting paid. We want you to get hit. We don't want you to get hit. There's no value to you after retirement or in your career getting beat up more. So also it makes Aaron look like he's a team guy, but he understands the part of the process. Here he's getting picks and discovering what Jordan Love is. I think this makes a ton of sense. Listen, Green Bay is not an out-of-the-box team, and they frankly should be, because they're sort of an out-of-the-box franchise. They don't have an owner. It's the smallest market in professional sports, so they're an odd franchise. And when you're an odd franchise with clear limitations and disadvantages in ownership and free agent capabilities, You can't be conservative and have disadvantages against the market. At some point, if you have disadvantages, you got to take big swings. I mean, gosh, if they lose this weekend and next, and I suspect they will, let Jordan Love face Philadelphia. Let Jordan Love, if he's any good, if he is, trade him, get picks. It's not about moving off Aaron. It's about sitting Aaron for a brief time, seeing what you got with the kid. And, I know there's a lot of desperate teams out there every year, but every year 6, 7, or 8, even some good teams, they may consider moving off a quarterback. They want to see what they have with Jordan. So, that's my take with the Packers. Okay, now, I did say the Philadelphia, the Eagles. Here's what I had with the Eagles. So, obviously, Philadelphia is the last unbeaten team in the NFL. And, we do this over and over and over again. We fall in love with regular seasons. But we know that in all of sports, hockey is crazy. Number 1 seeds get beat all the time. In hockey by, number 8 seeds. We know this to be true. Regular season NFL is different than playoff NFL. The pressure is different. The experience is different. The intensity is different. The weather is different. But we fall for it. So now everybody's in this, in the Philadelphia, and I was reading earlier this week where an NFL executive said that in the NFC, he said he could see the Eagles being one and done, and they haven't gone 15 rounds with anybody. So are they battle tested? So let's look at recent history, and really it's fascinating. So let's look at pro sports, just pro sports. Dodgers. Los Angeles Dodgers this year were not only the best regular season team, they had a run differential of plus 334. It's one of the most dominant regular season teams in baseball history. 111 wins. Could not get out of the first round. Dominated by a Padres team. They dominated the pressure. Was all on the Dodgers. And they didn't deal with it, okay? Let's go to the NBA. Last year, 2021, Phoenix Suns, 8 games better than the second best team, dominated the league in point differential, whacked by Dallas in the second round. Underdog Dallas with no pressure. 2018-2019, one of the great regular seasons of hockey with the Tampa Bay Lightning. 62 wins for the most in sports history. Had the league MVP, swept in the first round. One swat, okay? The Baltimore Ravens, 2019. They went 14-2. Lamar is the MVP, the best record in the NFL, best point differential in the NFL. Could not win a playoff game. The offense dried up. I give you every sport. Baseball, hockey, basketball, football. Why? Because playoff games are always close. Secondly, the pressures overwhelmingly unfavored teams, especially if their undefeated record setting dominates the sport. Dodgers, Tampa Bay Lightning, Baltimore Ravens. I went and looked at a list of the final undefeated teams in the NFL from 2006 to today. The Eagles are the final undefeated team. Many lost in the wild card round. Some didn't even make it to the playoffs. I had to go to 2006 to you know who? To find Peyton Manning and the Colts for the last undefeated team. They went 9-0 to win a Super Bowl. Many were knocked out early. Everybody knows. There's the regular season, and then there's the postseason. And everything changes. Kyle Shanahan against Nick Sirianni. Who's your pick? Jalen Hurts against Brady. Who's your pick? Stop. I don't like Philadelphia, but dominating regular seasons can create overconfidence and apathy, and a lot of times they're based on, like in football, on who have you played. Monday Night Football, Minnesota, Philadelphia. It was in Philadelphia. They played the Cowboy games. Okay, they played the Cowboys against Cooper Rush in Philadelphia. Look at their wins. They've dominated bad teams. Now you're saying, Tim, but this is nuts. Well, do I think Philadelphia has earned the right to be called the number one team in the league? Yes. But we have history, in recent history, and nobody would dispute that. that dominating regular season teams, it doesn't mean anything even in the NFL last year. Home field advantage didn't mean anything. The Titans had a bye and a home field loss to the Packers. Had a bye and home field advantage. It is a different game with different weather and different pressure. It's just something to consider. All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Sunday, an iconic showdown shaped by history.
The receiver did not maintain. It is good. The Packers are moving on.
Fueled by passion, a rivalry reborn. Cowboys, Packers, Sunday on Fox.
I love Montana, but I'm doing this for our family.
They will fight you dirty.
Is there any other way?
Ruin them, starting with her.
Signing this is a declaration of war.
We're already at war.
I do this for my father. I don't do this for me.
We give everything to this land. And I do mean everything.
Yellowstone 2-hour premiere event, Sunday at 8 on Paramount Network.
Okay, so mention about the college football playoff. The playoff push. All right, things about college football that drive me crazy. I think this sport is too lucrative not to have a scheduling honcho, somebody that's dedicated. Okay, 4 or 5 weekends of the year in college football, you're like, there's not enough games. You need to have somebody that makes up schedules, even things out, makes the big dogs play the big dogs. So, every weekend you have at least 4 or 5 marquee games. Instead, everybody's hiding, everybody's picking up buys. They're playing teams that are competitive, so it drives me crazy. And that's why I talk more NFL than I do college football, because there's simply more good competitive matchups every weekend. So, but I am for a 12-game playoff for a lot of reasons. But here's one. Okay, so the college football rankings, we got those again Tuesday night. And the top 4 teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU. They make the playoffs. The 2 just on the outside are Tennessee and Oregon. Then there's LSU and USC, 2. So college football has this built-in guilt, I feel like, that they feel like they need to put in a good story in the playoff every once in a while instead of the 4 best teams. So if you go back to the beginning, 8 years of the playoff, they've done this 3 times. Or they've put a team in there that doesn't really recruit at an elite level. They put Michigan State in at 2015. They got housed. They put Washington in 2016. They got suffocated. They put Cincinnati in last year's, a way better story than a team. They got smoked. And if you look at the top 4 this year, who doesn't fit? TCU. Because if you're really an elite recruiting NFL factory that can win a national championship, you bulldoze about 8 teams on your schedule. Ohio State blows out people. Michigan blows out people. Georgia blows out people. Oregon can blow out people. TCU they blew out nobody. TCU is slithering by Big 12 teams, and last year TCU was 45th in the country in recruiting. Or excuse me, this year they don't have. There's only like 40 NFL guys from TCU. Now look, it's a good program, but it's the classic college football mistake. There's this guilt associated with college football that you gotta wedge in every couple years that undefeated good story. And here's all you need to know: this weekend, TCU is a touchdown underdog to 3 with Texas. Vegas knows the truth. Stop with a good story. Get to the good teams. We know who they are. Oregon can play with anybody in the country. Now I know the opening game against Georgia was a mess. New coach, new staff. In the South, LSU can play against anybody. Tennessee can play against anybody. Come on, this is not a shot at TCU, but once you shrink a club, my standards for the membership are going to be very rigid and my standards are going to be very high. So college football, as long as I've been watching it, has been a bunch of haves and have-nots. TCU is not a top 10. I mean, they don't recruit like it. They don't look like it. And there's nothing wrong with them going to a great bowl. This is why I'm rooting for a 12-team playoff, because then TCU can get in and somebody's got that big boy players everywhere. Doesn't have to be forced out years and years. And I've said this before, I don't understand a 12-team playoff because I never thought the 7th or 8th best team in the country could be a national championship contender. And I'm still not sure if I do. But if college football is going to have a limited playoff structure, look, hockey, baseball, football, Major League Soccer, you've got playoffs here. It's not about vote. It's not about optics. It's not about aesthetics. It's about like people playing in college. It's football. It's we're never going to be able to have that kind of playoff system. So let's get it to 12. It allows for a TCU, which will lose a game by the end of the season, to get in there, not win a national championship. Nobody thought Cincinnati was, or Washington was, or Michigan State was, and TCU won't. But this is a classic example of what we're doing now. The story over the team, and what would Vegas say? If Oregon and TCU played a neutral field tomorrow, Oregon's going to be favored. LSU's going to be favored. Let's be honest. They're sneaking by average. Big 12 teams that Georgia would pummel. That Georgia would just pummel them. Okay? Ohio State would pummel them. Michigan would pummel them by far. All right, good stuff. So, I got a lot of different articles about a lot of different people. So this was interesting. All right. And what's going on? I've read this article by Jeff Howe. He's the writer of The Athletic. And one thing we know about trades is that a lot of things that happen in these sports, they just come out of nowhere. I mean, you can't predict it. I mean, when Kevin Durant and the Warriors happened fast, Brady to Tampa, that was live. It was in the middle of the day. It happened real fast. And I've said, when you get divorced, there is that such a life-altering event. So, Tom Brady's 45. I think one of the reasons he moved to Florida when he was a Patriot was Tom liked the warm weather. His former wife had great influence. It's a more international city than Boston. And now he's divorced. So, what's your loyalty to Florida? I just feel like he's never felt like a Florida guy. And to me, he's got that Northern California kid. I think he acclimated to the Northeast, but he doesn't even feel like a New England guy right now. Like, I always thought Tommy is just, Tommy. Tommy, he's not loyal. He's not, he's a Northern Californian. That's where his family is. His favorite team was the 49ers when he was growing up. He feels very Californian to me. High school, he wanted to play college there. They overlooked him. So, his parents are getting older. If you won a Super Bowl, if Tampa would win the Super Bowl, I don't think it's possible. He may just call it a career. But I think there's stuff here that's really, really possible. And one of the things I think is possible is San Francisco with that roster. Take it for instance, okay, San Francisco with that roster, they lose in the playoffs, like to Minnesota or a team like Seattle. And they feel they're a better team, and Garoppolo doesn't play well. And Shanahan's like, okay, I don't trust Trey Lance. We're going to move off him. And they would go get Brady. And Brady's parents are getting older. He's a Niners, he's been a Niners fan, and he's a Northern California kid. And he would go to San Francisco, and he'd figure out a way to, make his salary count. I think it's very possible. Jeff Howe, he talked about how he used to cover the Patriots, and it may seem daffy, but he keeps complaining about how Tampa doesn't have things buttoned up. I'm talking about Tom Brady. He doesn't. I feel like things aren't buttoned up anymore with Tampa Bay. Button up. Say what you want about Belichick and Kyle Shanahan. They've got stuff buttoned up. They're intense. So is Brady. Okay. It's in Tampa. It's always felt very loose, and Tom struggled with this kind of tightening things up commitment pre-snap. Anyway, Jeff Howe threw out this theory, and it's not unreasonable, and it's not very far-fetched.
My theory is, if Brady continues to be frustrated for the remainder of this season in Tampa, and he's going to become a free agent, if he still wants to keep playing, I don't think he's going to want to come back at age 46, seeing an organization or a roster that he doesn't think is going to meet the Super Bowl expectations, and he would enjoy, again, becoming a free agent. So who is he going to look at? Of course he would be gravitated toward his hometown 49ers. I think he would also be gravitated toward Josh McDaniels and the Raiders if they want to split with Derek Carr. And I'm not willing to rule out a potential return to the Patriots. I think at this point in his career, familiarity is going to be important.
All right, the reason I think the Raiders and the Patriots would be a distant second or maybe third is because Tom would prefer the NFC here, okay? All right, here's the current season. If the season ended today, this will be the route to the Super Bowl for Tom Brady and the NFC. You think he wants to stay in this conference? I mean, Jalen Hurts, a number 1 seed, would have to buy Cousins. He'd have to beat Cousins, would face Garoppolo. I'd take Garoppolo and the Niners. Geno would face Daniel Jones and the Giants. I'd probably take Seattle. They'd probably be at home, and then they won the division. Brady would face Jalen, so you start looking around, and I would take Geno, and then it would be Hurts against Garoppolo, and again, I would take the Niners roster and experience to win that Brady over Geno, and Tom would face his former understudy to get to the Super Bowl. Now, that's pretty darn attractive to me. Now, if you go over to the AFC, this is why I think that it would totally discount Belichick and the Raiders. Josh Allen gets a bye, okay? Then it's Herbert, Mahomes, Lamar, and Tua. Tua's probably at Tannehill, and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's obviously the weakest, but let's look at it after that for now. And then it's Josh Allen and Tannehill, both of 1 playoff games. It's Mahomes and Lamar Jackson's MVPs, and then I would go with Josh Allen and Mahomes, and that's a lot tougher sled to get through. And I don't think Tom thinks about that. I think one of it, since he chose Tampa with all those weapons. I mean, look at it. He just went outside of like the right tackle, maybe another running back. They've got all those weapons back. Gronk is down. I think Tom's looking at everything at 45 years old. So I think the Niners make a lot of sense. And that's not a knock on Garoppolo or Jalen Hurts or Geno. I mean, they're having great years, but boy, if you put the court, and if quarterbacks matter, and we know they do, put the quarterbacks you go through in the NFC over the AFC. It's not that far-fetched. It's just been a strange year. The Seahawks are a massive surprise. I think they're a wonderful surprise. I think it's a great story. And, Pete Carroll can roll his eyes at us, amateur critics and everybody's thinking it. But that's why the Niners feel right to me. So, all right, so the Steelers, ever struggling, a lot this season. They're near the bottom of the league on offense. But Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season since becoming the head coach in 2007. And here's what he said when he was asked if he's open to making changes to the current game plan and getting young players on the team.
If it's conducive to engineering victory, that's our sole agenda. Is putting together a plan and highlight the skills of players that produce victory. And so if it's a component, if that's an component of the equation, then certainly. We're singularly focused on this week's opportunity, which is to win this game.
All right, so the Steelers are hosting the Saints. New Orleans to come off the short week. They had Monday Night Football loss. They are a 2.5-point favorite in Pittsburgh, and Tomlin as an underdog, which is strange. So, all right. So I talked about this Monday, and of course the Lakers had a game last night, and oh boy, LeBron's hurt again. You just seems like a total letdown. So for the Lakers, LeBron played really well last night. Anthony Davis played really well. Russell Westbrook played really well. And they still got housed against the Clipper team that didn't have their best player, Kawhi Leonard. And they were down 17 were the Lakers in the first quarter. And all their stars, their Hall of Famers, they all played well on all the big brands in America right now. You think about it. Yankees, Notre Dame football, Duke basketball, Celtics, Green Bay Packers, 49ers. Whatever the big brands are in America, none is as hopeless today and has a bleaker future than your Los Angeles Lakers. They're not good. Now, the future is bleak. I mean, they have no draft capital coming up in the next few years. They don't have any young ascending stars. They don't have a front office with a history of clever trades. I don't think they have any cap space and an ownership group that doesn't want to pay a penalty on that stuff. So the Lakers did with LeBron James what Cleveland did and what Miami did. Like Clear actually did. They did it twice. They gave the franchise to LeBron. And if you give the franchise to LeBron, here's what happens. He does not play with he doesn't like playing with young players. So you have to get rid of your young players first of all. First thing you did when he got to LA, all the young players, get him out. Keep pretending like you like Kyle Kuzma. He faked it. He liked Lonzo Ball. He got him out. So he got him out of here. So your roster gets much older. In Miami, it was like Mike Miller and Shane Battier and Ray Allen and then Haslam, and it gets old. So that's what LeBron doesn't. LeBron doesn't want to play with young guys. So you gotta get rid of your young players. I know. They were developing them in Cleveland and developing them in Los Angeles and developing them in Miami, but you got to get rid of them. And LeBron doesn't care about draft picks. So you kind of get rid of those trades, whatever you got to do to get a veteran player, whatever you got to do to get veteran players. And it's all good when LeBron was in his prime, but now he's out. And he's hurt, and he's hurt a lot. He's not available. Oh, yeah. And he has a rookie head coach. Eric Spoelstra is not around to tie the loose around, not around, and he's got a rookie head coach. Could be go well with. I have no idea. I have no idea if Darham Ham is good. Seems like a good guy, but this is what Miami did, and it took Miami, and that's with Pat Riley, and with great ownership, with a great coach. It took them 4 to 5 years to rebuild the draft capital, get emerging, ascending young players, become a consistent playoff team. And that's where spells struck Riley and a great owner and a great culture. And the Lakers right now, they don't have any of it. Delete your fans, because understand this. You are staring down the barrel at a decade of irrelevance. And you've mostly been irrelevant for 8 to 9 years before LeBron. Does everybody get how urgent this is? So you got to go get 2 tradable stars. I mean, like, you got to get something for them. Anthony Davis and LeBron. The reluctance to move Anthony Davis is beyond me. I don't get it. I don't know why they haven't moved off in the last 2 years, because he hasn't given much. He's not healthy. And you think he's going to get through the season without an injury? Really? Move him as soon as you can. But I also think that if you don't have the courage to do it, you got to consider what you got to do with LeBron. I mean, they're not going to trade him before he breaks Kareem's all-time scoring record, which, where he's going now as far as games and stuff like that, that he's got, I think it's like 1,000 points he's got left he's got to do. Well, when he had this groin injury last time, he was out 17 games. I mean, I don't know if he'll get it. They're 2-9. I don't think they'll get it. So they're not going to trade him before he breaks Kareem's all-time scoring record. That's if he does that. That'll probably be in January if it ever gets done. Trading deadlines are in February, so you have to consider it. Okay, you're not winning when you don't want to play with young players. He's going to get older. I mean, the Lakers don't have any versatile athletic wing defenders. They don't have any shooters. I mean, they're not close. Big brands have always had huge advantages in American sports. I mean, we learned this week. OBJ, what a shock. He's leaning to the Cowboys. It helps, especially young athletes. They want to get marketing money and social media money. You know, they're not going to go to the Detroit Lions. You want to go to big brands. You want to go to big cities. OBJ wanted to come to L.A. OBJ was in New York. OBJ wants to go to Dallas. Get the better team. He probably ends up in Dallas. The star, Jerry Jones, the marketing. So you should be as big as a big brand like Michigan football. You can pay for Jim Harbaugh. It's attractive to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's been in the Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh's not taking the job at Tulane or Cincinnati. And then you've got a big bet on Lincoln Riley. USC's okay. They're 4-8. If Arizona football was 4-8, would they get Lincoln Riley? No. You have to have a huge advantage being a big brand, especially with athletes and oftentimes with coaches, because once it gets rolling, I mean, LSU got Brian Kelly an hour later. They're really good. So you're staring down the barrel here of problems. I mean, to me, the solution is you got 2 tradable pieces. I'd move one now. I consider the other one later. You don't have LeBron, and he's on his 20th season. You can't talk about it. You can't make a phone call. You're not going to move in before Kareem's record breaks. But I understand what you're looking at here. This is a bleak 9 straight loss, and it was to the Clippers. Kawhi is not planted most of them, and we think the Clippers are an underachieving, but the Lakers are now easily the second best team in their own building. And LeBron, after the game, asked about the rough start.
Team is just in a tough spot right now, being 2-9. Really? So, it's for sure. Right. So it's the preamble to the question. So how do you manage the idea of Darvin telling you, he told us to take care of your body, versus the urgency that you feel being a leader of a team that needs to get some wins?
In order for you to be productive for your teammates, you have to take care of your body. That don't mean expect yourself from a game of basketball. You can always be thinking about what you could do better. When watching the game tomorrow, you're going to get the film from the coaching staff. You can ask for the film. Anyway, to always just keep your mind engaged.
Look, I'm not anti-Lakers. I'm really not. But I am I'm anti-franchise that doesn't appear to have a plan. What are we doing here? Not working. Getting worse. Not even close to as good as another team that you share a building with. Okay, so I saw this. I think it came out today. Belichick and Brady. Okay, their divorce took the high road. Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are not taking the high road. It's been simmering, clearly. This was a simmering, heated relationship for multiple years. The rumors, the reporting was on point and true. There was no fake news here. Russell didn't think he was getting enough credit. Pete didn't think he was getting enough credit. And now they're taking shots at each other, and they're fighting over a wristband. So, here's Pete first, okay? You guys take for what it is.
If you notice, going off the wristband. That's a big help. It smooths things out, sped things up, clean things up, and that's part of it too. And we never did that before. There was resistance to that, so we didn't do that before.
All right, so, and of course, Russell Wilson. Then he was asked about Pete Carroll's comments, and he had to say this.
I don't know exactly what he said, but I think, won a lot of games there without one on the wrist. But, and I didn't know winning or losing mattered if he wore a wristband or not, but I think that, do whatever it takes to make else. A few times I definitely won a wristband, depending on the game plan and what we got called and all that stuff.
All right, like most things, both are true. Okay, Pete probably didn't feel that Russell Wilson was appreciated, Marshawn Lynch, and Pete's amazing defense, the Legion of Boom. That's probably true. And Russell thought, dude, you were fired 2 times before you got to Seattle. You got a losing record in Seattle until I got here. I was the catalyst. You're not a great defense. It was so great. Why didn't we win before I was here? And Russell was right. But it's interesting, okay? Brady initially won the divorce. But don't you think today, privately, he probably misses the coaching and the expertise of Belichick? I mean, Pete Carroll initially won this divorce. He has won it through 9 weeks. But we all kind of have a feeling, don't we, that Geno Smith will lose in the playoffs. He'll get outplayed. He'll hit his ceiling, probably, regress a little. Seattle will draft a quarterback and maybe reach in their draft, and we'll probably miss because they may not have a great quarterback in this year's draft. There's clearly no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Justin Fields. I don't believe there's not even an Andrew Luck for sure. And 4 to 5 teams that draft a quarterback in the first round don't get a great quarterback. So it's likely, statistically, historically, that Seattle misses, and then Pete, in a couple years, he's going to be sitting there losing and thinking in the playoffs, and I sure could use a playmaker at quarterback like Russ. And I think Russell Wilson today is now realizing there's not a lot of bad coaches in this league. He's one of the few great ones. So there's 2 things to take from this, and this is my opinion. Number 1 is neither side generally wins a divorce forever. Both will have successes and failures. And the second thing is we got to appreciate in sports when you are great. Hopefully Pete and Russell enjoyed every win and every second of their greatness. It closes and shuts down very quickly in pro football. Pete went in the divorce. Now Brady won the divorce. Initially, when it took forever, he did at some point. It's going to meet a little bit of a wall with Geno Smith in the NFC. Don't you think maybe it's possible? Maybe he'll lose to Philadelphia. Watch Jalen Hurts make plays with his feet, Maybe loses somebody else in football. Maybe they get to the Super Bowl and he loses, to Josh Allen making plays. And Patrick Mahomes, the playmaker. Or Joe Burrow, and thinks, man, I wish I had that talent. And he did. Russell Wilson was unbelievable for an 8-year stretch. And I don't think he's washed. Maybe he's not as good as he was, but I think Pete eventually, it's going to have to draft a quarterback to replace Geno. And don't forget, but one great quarterback per draft, and now Seattle is not going to have a top 15 pick. Seattle's winning too many games. And my guess is Seattle, with those first couple picks, they're going to pick guys that can play and start, maybe a center, maybe a receiver, maybe an outside linebacker, and they're going to have to go get a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round. That's not as talented, but it could hit. But you don't want to pound the table when you're on top for too long. It turned on Tom Brady really fast, and he's holding on to dear life in Tampa. So finally, this is probably the craziest story of the week, was the Colts fired their coach, Frank Reich. Now, I read recently tonight in a report that possibly the Patriots could look at him as being an offensive coordinator. In my opinion, that would be great. I don't know if it'll improve with the Patriots. The Patriots are still in the hunt for playoffs, but good thing about this league is there's always a position that's going to be open. So yeah, the Colts went ahead and they hired an interim coach, Jeff Saturday. And the announcement was a complete stunner. And you heard the sound bites from the press conference from the owner, Jim Irsay, on my last episode. And one of the main criticisms that I've seen this week is that Saturday did not have coaching experience. I liked him as an ESPN analyst. He knows what he's talking about. He was in it so long, but here's a little bite of his rant as being an interim coach, and I think this is fantastic.
I'm completely comfortable in who I am as a man, bro. I know I can lead men. I know the game of football, and I'm passionate about it. I have no fear about, are you as qualified as somebody else, bro? I spent 14 years in the locker room. I went to playoffs 12 times. I got 5 dudes in the Hall of Fame that I play with. You don't think I've seen greatness? You don't think I've seen how people prepare, how they coach, how they GM, how they work? I mean, won Super Bowls, been to 2. Like, here's the deal, man. None of us are promised a good job. I may be terrible at this, and after 8 games, I'll say, God bless you. I am no good. I may be really good at it. I got no idea, but I dang sure ain't gonna back down.
God bless him. Man, that's awesome. So, all right, TCU versus Texas. Big game this weekend, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Texas is favored by 3 points. Like most weekends, it could be an interesting Saturday or Sunday, so you guys take it as it is. Weather should clear up, so Saturday would be a good day to sit there and watch football. Sunday would be good. So it's getting cold finally, but you guys enjoy your weekend. I'll see you back on here on Monday. Remember to follow First and Tim on Twitter, subscribe on Spotify and YouTube for episodes like this one plus previous ones. So this has been First and Tim.